This is the story of how Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Kenya's first vice president, started school in MASENO school and advanced on to have a complex relationship with his principal. The white man, Francis, was a British mathematician who had moved to Kenya to educate in some of the country's leading early schools. The story begins in MASENO with a situation that landed Jaramogi in trouble. It was school closing day and excitement among the boys was palpable. To ensure all was well, the school assistant captain, who also doubled as food prefect, did his rounds, and in one of the stores he found some paraffin. He emptied it into a tin and joined other students making their way out of the school. But as prefect, Adonija Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, as he was known then, happily marched out of school with plans of uninterrupted studies during the holidays now that he had stolen oil to burn the midnight in pursuit of academic excellence. Sooner than later, he was jolted back into reality. It took the hawk-eyed principal, Francis, one look and a couple of questions to analyze the situation and catch a thief. He said, "I'm going to arrest you and take you back for punishment to the school." This is all recorded in Jaramogi Odinga's autobiography that was published in 1967. Francis, Jaramogi writes, then carried out his threat. "The principal thrashed me 4 kibokos and detained me in school for 5 days for being a thief." His encounter with the most dreaded teacher, Francis Kare, was almost traumatizing. Jaramogi, who was in his 4th year in the school, which he had joined in 1929, had been quite spectacular. The principal had met the assistant captain as he was leaving school and wondered what he was carrying in a tin. When he learned that one of the most trusted prefects was up to stealing paraffin, he exclaimed, "That is thieving. You are in a position of trust, and you have now taken paraffin without asking for permission." Those were the words of the angered principal. This was not the first time that the budding scholar, who would later become Kenya's first vice president, would receive punishment for disobeying school rules at MASENO. Early in the term, Jaramogi forgot to inform the authorities that food supplies were running out and was shocked when the cooks declared that there was nothing to feed the hungry students. That day, the boys slept on empty stomachs. Later, when he and 3 other boys cleared their course in 1934, Francis wanted him to become a teacher at MASENO, but Jaramogi, who believed he had a higher calling himself, resisted, insisting that he had to continue with his education. Not used to his orders being questioned, Francis Kare threatened to throw Jaramogi out of MASENO school, but the independent-minded scholar dared him to do it. On that same day, Jaramogi packed his things and left the school compound and started a long walk towards home. However, Francis rushed after him in his car and took him back to the school and thrashed him, promising that he would consider his case for further education. The love-hate relationship between the teacher and his pupil had started earlier in 1929 when Jaramogi, after graduating from Maranda Primary School, had sat his common entrance examination at MASENO, but after his 35-kilometer walk to the institution, was appalled at the reception. When he first set foot there, Jaramogi thought teachers treated pupils very shabbily at MASENO. His age was recorded as 10 years, although he insists that at the time he was nearly 16 years. The food too was terrible, and so when he was instructed to go back home and fetch the 60 shillings needed for school fees, he vanished. For a whole year, he gave MASENO a wide berth and he lived in hibernation away from home. His exile was however cut short when Shadrach Osewe, the head of Maranda Primary School and his former principal, found him and took him to Francis. Jaramogi says in his book that since Osewe knew he did not like MASENO school, he wanted Jaramogi to apprentice as a telegraphist at the post office and sought the assistance of the Archdeacon Owen so that he could convince Francis to give him a recommendation letter to secure the job. However, when Owen went to Francis in 1929 for recommendation, the principal urged Jaramogi to continue with his studies as he was still young. The principal insisted that he stay at the school, but Jaramogi and another boy ran away to Kisumu, but he was apprehended and returned to MASENO school. When he failed to attend school, citing his inability to pay the 60 shilling required for fees, Francis secured 20 shillings from his own mother and gave it to Jaramogi, advising his folks to raise the balance. He organized with another teacher for Jaramogi Odinga to be employed as a servant and in return earn a 6 shillings salary, which went towards purchasing of books and payment for fees. Francis Kare's philanthropy was evident when, after Jaramogi defied him and opted to continue with education instead of teaching, and when he ultimately cleared his education at Alliance High School school and was admitted to Makerere University in 1937, Francis came to Jaramogi's aid yet again. This time he loaned the brilliant student a whopping 180 shillings, which he was to repay with his salary once he graduated. This explains why when he finished his training, Francis was eager that Jaramogi returned to MASENO school as a teacher. As a teacher at MASENO school, Jaramogi's teaching methodology in mathematics clashed with that of Francis, who insisted that Africans wear uniforms of bush jacket, shorts and long stocking and were expected to be disciplined like the schoolboys they were teaching, especially in the presence of the whites. Francis, however, distrusted the African teachers such that he insisted that they be supervised by their white colleagues while teaching, which brought constant conflict between him and Jaramogi. Francis, who was a bachelor, ruled that unmarried teachers from MASENO school were not to receive or entertain women at night in their quarters. He appointed teachers to enforce this. Jaramogi enlisted the services of a tailor, John Owor of Kina, Bunyore, to make him a suit, which he wore and complemented with a wide hat and a walking stick in defiance to Francis's orders. One day, he had women in his quarters, and when the master of the African quarters came to warn him that he had to either send them away or organize they spend the night in the married quarters, he ignored the warning. The following morning, he was reported to the principal. This stoked such huge controversy that Francis was forced to scrap the repellent laws. That was the life of Jaramogi at MASENO school.